This veteran has finally returned from his mandatory military service. His girlfriend has been counting down the days, but clearly his heart is elsewhere. This man's priorities are absolutely set in stone. He barely acknowledges her existence, sprinting past her without a second glance. He charges straight to his room because a long-awaited treasure is waiting. His brand new cutting-edge gaming capsule is finally ready. Before his enlistment, he reigned as the undisputed number one hardcore ranker in a notoriously brutal, soul-crushing game. A legendary title that eventually met its demise and shut down. But now a spiritual successor has just been unleashed upon the world, and he is itching to dive headfirst into the digital abyss, plunging into the virtual realm. The character customization interface flickers to life. He swiftly equips himself with his sleek badass middle part hairstyle and registers his legacy under the name Kaiser. Next, he's thrust into a decaying apocalyptic tutorial battlefield where the VR graphics are breathtaking. But survival comes first, and he needs a blade. Kaiser claims a sword and crosses paths with Charlie, the valiant knight captain leading the charge, who enlists the mercenary to face the oncoming slaughter. The battlefield is a desperate, bloody mess. Charlie fears an unspeakable calamity will decimate the world if these monsters aren't quelled immediately. They are greeted by a hail of arrows and a swarm of beast warriors. But before the captain can even bark an order, Kaiser lunges forward, obliterating every monstrous creature in his path. Despite being a complete novice in this new world, he's styling on these hyena-faced freaks, sending them screaming back to the hell they came from. He had been plagued by doubts that his combat instincts had rusted during his service. Instead, he feels more agile and lethal than ever before. The captain is absolutely floored by his prowess, triggering the game's favorability system, just like his experiences in the previous title. The captain's trust is so absolute that he'd likely look the other way if our protagonist committed a felony, granting him a prestigious rare title, Affection Max. The mission continues. Their objective is to execute a dark sorcerer lurking within the gate. Suddenly, a fresh wave of nightmares crawls out from the castle depths. Charlie prepares to hold the line alone, commanding the hero to press on. Tasking our boy with slaying the summoner and entrusting the future to his blade. Even Kaiser is stunned to see this NPC charging into a suicidal mob. Normally, the AI is scripted to assist the player in the final boss encounter. The game's logic adapts dynamically based on the player's overwhelming performance. But whatever is lurking behind those heavy doors is something truly malevolent, a presence so foul that even the system issues a dire warning. Kaiser immediately realizes he's stumbled upon a hidden piece, a secret trial triggered only by fulfilling a strict specific set of conditions. The danger is extreme, yet he's grinning with the thrill of the hunt. The massive doors creak open, but there is no dark sorcerer waiting inside. Instead, a gargantuan, terrifying monstrosity looms in the darkness. Shackled in chains and radiating a murderous crimson aura, the iron-blooded demonic dragon finds its next prey. While Kaiser is paralyzed by the realization that he's clashing with a legendary boss in the literal opening stage, this title inherited several mechanics from Demlock and one of those core inspirations. Is the tiered ranking system scaling from normal, rare, and heroic all the way to legendary? This hierarchy applies to every boss, but the true nightmares are the unique monsters beasts with their own terrifying individual titles. And just as you suspected, this nightmare-inducing beast is one of those legendary named horrors. It concentrates a devastating surge of raw power within its core, unleashing a roar that emits a crushing, insane pressure. This overwhelming aura instantly stuns our protagonist, triggering a barrage of system alerts identifying the dragon species while flagging a massive debuff to his physical stats. Every single movement-related attribute is crippled by 20 to 25%. At this point, our boy is genuinely questioning what the developers were smoking when they balanced this encounter. The only saving grace is that this overgrown lizard is currently restrained by heavy chains. Even so, a single swipe from its massive claw is a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Kaiser has survived these life-or-death stakes back in Demlock against equally terrifying adversaries, leaving him with only one path forward: a brutal choice, kill or be killed. The veteran player draws his steel and narrowly evades a ground-shattering opening strike. He pivots sharply to the right, before lunging back into the fray with a wide sweeping slash to draw first blood. A second deafening roar vibrates through the air, stunning him once again. Realizing he's about to be crushed underfoot, he counters the descending paw with a desperate high-speed sword slash, only to be sent reeling back several feet by the sheer kinetic impact. He takes a split second to check the damage he's actually inflicted, and out of a staggering million HP, he's only managed to shave off a pathetic 120 points. In other words, he needs to achieve total focus or he's going to end up as Dragon Chow. This is an absurd game-breaking difficulty curve for a mere tutorial boss. Kaiser carves into the dragon's hide once more, recalling the chaotic forum threads where players claimed not even the top-tier rankers could scratch this beast, yet our boy is out here styling on it with precise rhythmic slashes. Vivid memories of those disbelief-filled comments flood his mind, as he expertly parries and strikes, wearing the dragon down with surgical precision. Interestingly, the community had also obsessed over how the demonic dragon's name was even revealed. Most players dismissed the encounter as a scripted event or a game bug, Others were baffled because finally someone had actually managed to slay the tutorial boss for the first time. Impaling the dragon's claw, he begins to torture the beast with a relentless flurry of steel. Kaiser goes full Levi Ackerman, spinning like a lethal blade and shredding the monster's massive body. Against all odds, the legendary dragon finally collapses in defeat. Crowned as the first person to ever slay a legendary boss in the tutorial, his rewards are imminent. But for now, Kaiser is gasping for air, completely drained of energy. Fuming over how stubborn and tanky this damn boss turned out to be. Sheathing his sword, he focuses on the notification, confirming he is indeed the first player to ever conquer this beast. Surpassing even his old rivals who had written this creature off as an unbeatable tutorial obstacle. Now Kaiser wonders how his former comrades are faring just as his rewards begin to manifest. He is bestowed with the prestigious First Slayer title, unlocking a series of god tier traits for his future gameplay. First comes Weapon Master, followed by Hidden Dragon Slayer and Hero. And finally, the Overcomer, as every secret condition has been flawlessly met, unlocking the ultimate transcendent trait, the Eye of Truth. And based on first impressions alone, Kaiser is floored that he secured so many rewards in a single bout. Normally, a standard tutorial only grants a solitary trait per player. Let's break down traits for a moment. They are a cornerstone of this game's specialized mechanics. They range from utility types like Guide to combat heavy ones like Swordmaster, with high-tier traits strictly locked behind peak performance. Kaiser's core stats have nearly doubled, and his sword proficiency has skyrocketed alongside a mountain of other lucrative buffs. He fixes his gaze on his most peculiar acquisition, a trait that allows him to perceive things hidden from the naked eye. It's a cryptic power, but undeniably potent. While Weapon Master and Hero Slayer are formidable assets, they aren't exactly one-of-a-kind rarities. There will always be a handful of elite players in the community who manage to secure those specific powers. But a unique skill like the Eye of Truth is on an entirely different level of rarity. Basically, the man just hit the jackpot of the century, walking away with a haul of rewards and a monumental achievement. Even his new title grants him a lethal edge, boosting his damage output against boss monsters by 10%. Right now, he feels like he's ascended to the top 1%. A sharp contrast to his abysmal luck in his previous game, kind of like me every time I waste money on Counter-Strike cases. He tracks the movement as the massive doors swing open. It's Captain Charlie looking absolutely battered, bloody, and broken from the fray. The knight is frozen in shock at the sight of the player. He stammers, asking if Kaiser truly slaughtered the monsters single-handedly, unable to comprehend the scene before him. He can't fathom how this man isn't even sporting a scratch, making him wonder if he's standing in the presence of a god-tier entity. Wisely, he decides not to pry into the mysteries of Kaiser's origins. Instead, he remarks that heroes are forged in the fires of absolute chaos, hailing Kaiser's arrival as a divine omen of hope. This cliché scripted dialogue is honestly boring our protagonist to tears. But then the captain drops to his knees, pleading with the hero, begging for the honor to serve as the hero's loyal blade. The system confirms that his oath is genuine, meaning he will now serve as Kaiser's dedicated subordinate. Our boy is completely blindsided by the sudden offer. Then again, Charlie was scripted to die in the original version of this game. So, Kaiser assumes there are no real perks here, especially since the tutorial was supposed to be a fixed event in the past. Dismissing it as a mere lore formality, Kaiser tells the captain to do whatever he pleases. The knight takes those words as a solemn vow of acceptance, effectively securing the captain's unwavering support for the journey ahead. The man can finally find peace, pinning all his hopes for a brighter future on the hero's shoulders. Kaiser ponders the weight of those parting words. As the system announces his imminent return to the Pantheon, a majestic portal shimmers into existence behind him, signaling the end of the tutorial stage. But just before he steps through, the knight calls out to his new master. Desperate to know where their next destination lies, taking a moment to weigh his options, Kaiser nonchalantly replies that they'll head wherever they're needed most. Since the world is currently a burning disaster, the knight is visibly moved by this response, acting like the man just dropped a life-changing philosophical truth or something. Regardless, the warping sequence initiates with a 5-second countdown. The captain thrusts a mysterious artifact into his hands just before the timer hits 0. With his final words, Charlie offers a grateful smile to his liege, praying for the world's salvation. Kaiser is instantly pulled back into the Pantheon, a celestial hub where every player must choose their patron deity and begin the path toward receiving divine blessings. He takes a moment to admire the breathtaking architecture, though to most players this is effectively just a glorified gacha room. This is the place that makes players weep or cheer based on their luck, as the god of gacha dictates their fate. After all, you can only serve one god. Everything in this realm is governed by tiers, even the gods themselves. Fable Hero and the Supreme Mythic tier. Fable gods are entities who ascended to divinity through the legendary tales whispered since ancient times. Hero gods are those mortal champions whose monumental contributions to humanity earned them their final ascension. Then there are the mythic gods, the supreme architects of entire pantheons like Zeus or Odin ruling their respective mythologies. As expected, these mythic deities sit at the absolute pinnacle of the tier hierarchy. Each shimmering card in this void houses a different deity. Normally, our boy's luck is pure garbage, so he wouldn't care, but a radiant golden card suddenly catches his eye, activating his Eye of Truth to pierce the veil. Kaiser instantly realizes he can peer through the veil to see exactly what lies behind every card. This is where his ability becomes truly game-breaking. He can identify the ultimate gacha pull and seize it for himself. He remembers his old teammates constantly mocking his abysmal luck. Their constant teasing used to cut deep, leaving him feeling demoralized and depressed. But the tables have turned. He is now officially on the path to becoming an elite high ranker. Kaiser can barely suppress his excitement, looking like a total dork because he knows he's already cleared the game. From this moment on, he resolves to hunt only the golden cards to maximize his own power. He claims the first card pulsing with a golden glow, successfully drawing a mythic tier one-armed sword god. It's a legendary mythic pull, and for a second the hype is real. But then the system disrupts his victory with an ominous, unexpected message. Apparently, Kaiser doesn't meet the requirements to become Tier's apostle, and he's forced to draw another card. The man is nearly in tears, wondering why on earth he's being rejected. Even the mythic god seems stunned by this turn of events. This is an unprecedented anomaly he's never encountered. The word vessel burns into his mind as he tries to solve the puzzle. Normally, whenever a user is slain by a demon lord's spawn, a goddess descends to deliver a divine revelation. The catch. Our boy slaughtered the spawn so fast, the goddess never even showed up. He's literally suffering from success because he bypassed the standard blessing. Kaiser frantically checks his stat window, only to find the entire apostle section is missing. The game brands him as nothing more than a lowly unaligned adventurer. This puts him in a desperate bind. It's like pulling an Egyptian god card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Only to realize you don't have the tribute to summon it. He realizes every high tier card will likely give him the same rejection. The weight of the situation causes him to collapse to his knees in despair. Once again, he's a victim of his own cursed luck. He's at a total loss. Even if he deleted his character to restart the game forces a grueling 2-month waiting period. But then a flickering light catches his peripheral vision, a peculiar card radiating a seething blood-red energy. This card feels fundamentally different, something completely undocumented. He reaches out to select the hidden relic. He draws the forgotten last adventurer Cassiar, finally meeting the unique qualifications to become his apostle. Kaiser's entire world is bathed in a crimson glow as he realizes he's stumbled upon a legendary hidden piece. After confirming the prompt, the system updates his class as the Last Adventurer, granting him the borrowed strength of humanity's final legendary warrior. Violent red energy spirals into his veins, fusing with his very soul. He unlocks a broken unique ability, the power to use any skill regardless of class restrictions, an absolute cheat code. Ignoring the traditional boundaries of combat, our boy can now spam any high-tier skill from any discipline. He can cherry-pick the most lethal abilities in existence to craft a perfect specialized skill tree. With the Eye of Truth, he can predict his skill evolution, and stacking that with Weapon Master will make him an unstoppable monster. This man is destined to become the ultimate master, jack of all trades, a warrior with zero weaknesses. With the advancement ritual complete, the system initiates the countdown to teleport him to Aftartel. Kaiser is vibrating with pure adrenaline. He finally has a reason to go all out. He grins as his dream of becoming a top ranker is reignited in the heart of Aftartel. We arrive at the City of Beginnings, Arde. New players are moping over their trash gacha pulls while others are content knowing combat isn't the only path to success. The plaza is a chaotic swarm of players beginning their journey, but lurking in the shadows are the scouters, vultures in sharp, expensive suits. They are hunting for fresh talent to recruit into their guilds, though most players find them incredibly obnoxious. One scout is reaching his breaking point, desperate to hit his recruitment quota before his boss fires him. But his luck is about to change as a certain someone appears. They spot a candidate in the distance who might actually be worth their time. At a glance, they assume the kid has lost his mind and decide he's a lost cause, passing him by without a second thought. Our protagonist is actually preoccupied admiring his newly equipped Necklace of Blood and Covenant. It's a hero-grade artifact boasting a suite of powerful, versatile attributes. Once again, he feels as though he's being bathed in divine luck. The sensation is intoxicating. Suddenly, a notification flares up, a goblin extermination quest, his first official trial as a player. He isn't alone. The entire vicinity is tasked with hunting down 40 goblins, and the crowd is buzzing with adrenaline. A mustachioed dwarf named Hunter Dante lazily delegates the slaughter to the players, demanding they clear the pest for him. The player's first instinct is to shout for recruitment to form parties, a detail Kaiser observes with a keen eye. Sure enough, a group approaches him, eager to coordinate their grind to level 12. The duo consists of an archer and a mage, and from the look of things, they seem relatively competent. As a rule of thumb, hunting is infinitely more efficient when you're part of a synchronized squad. In this world, the bonus experience from group play makes partying an absolute necessity for rapid growth. With that logic in mind, Kaiser gives them the green light and joins their ranks, forming the Shield Best party under the leader's designated handle. One of the teammates asks if he's a superfan, noting he chose the name of the legendary #1 ranker from the Demrock era. They assume he's just another fanboy paying homage to a retired icon, oblivious to the fact that the real legend is standing right there. It's like asking Michael Jackson if he's a MJ impersonator anyway. The party is fired up to blitz their way to level 12. Even our boy is looking forward to the incoming carnage. We cut to the mission zone where Shield Best slams into a goblin, dazing the creature with a heavy shield bash. The moment the opening is created, he bellows for the rest of the team to unleash hell. The archer and mage simultaneously release their respective long-range salvos. The projectiles streak past their ally, sniping the green skin and ending its life instantly. With the first kill confirmed, the momentum shifts. The remaining goblins are visibly shaken by the sudden display of force. But the mindless beasts still find the courage to charge forward like a pack of suicidal idiots. They pile on the pressure, testing the limits of Shield Best's defensive line. As his teammates worry about him weathering the storm, the leader grunts, telling them to stop worrying and start killing. He begs them to strike while he draws the aggro, but there's a fatal flaw. Both their primary skills are on cooldown. Seeing his opening, our boy descends into the fray from above, swinging his blade in a lethal arcing trajectory. He obliterates the goblin vanguard with a single devastating blow. His movement speed and combat flow are so terrifyingly efficient that the rest of the party is left staring in stunned silence. Kaiser sticks a perfect landing, his eyes already tracking the next target, before he detonates back into the heart of the monster horde. Like a heat-seeking missile, he blitzes through the pack, reaping goblin lives in a blur of steel. His performance earns him the awe and praise of his newfound comrades. Even the party leader has to take a breather, thanking him for the carry and assuming the quest is in the bag, but there's a catch. Just ahead, a massive reinforcement wave of goblins has arrived to block their path. The snickering bald green bastards are biding their time, waiting for the perfect moment to swarm. The team leader, sensing the danger urgently, signals for a tactical retreat. But the word retreat isn't in Kaiser's vocabulary. He's ready for all the smoke and lunges forward, much to the goblins' delight. The monsters cackle, believing that they've been gifted a free, overconfident victim. But as the man leaps into the air, he glares down at them like a literal incarnation of the god of death. A deceptive silence hangs for a fraction of a second. Before a massive explosion of force erupts from the impact of the clash, this triggers a memory of a conversation with an old friend who once asked why Kaiser always sought out the most suicidal battles. Our boy never understood what it meant to be reckless or careful. While his friends recalled how he'd always be the first to dive headlong into the jaws of a boss monster, the top ranker simply brushed it off, stating he had crushed every threat regardless of the danger. To him, recklessness is a foreign concept, even if others see it as suicide. While the sheer risk alone would sever the will of any ordinary fighter, Kaiser is built different. This man isn't in danger, he is the danger itself. And he isn't going to sugarcoat the truth. He has always fought with a cold, calculated methodology, operating under the absolute certainty that in every single encounter he would emerge victorious. The massive explosion that just rocked the battlefield was the devastating result of a high-tier skill called Smash. Kaiser lands brutal critical hits on the green goblins, and no, these aren't the friendly neighborhood variety. With only one lethal dark goblin remaining on the field, Kaiser repels backward to recalibrate, prioritizing the elimination of the most dangerous ranged threat first. During his mid-air dive, he shreds several armed warriors blocking his path. The dark goblin hurls a poisonous projectile in a desperate attempt to slow his momentum, but the man instantly triggers his overcome trait, surpassing his mortal limits and sharpening his combat senses to a razor's edge, allowing him to deflect the incoming venom with perfect timing, parrying the attack and leaving the goblin completely dazed by his insane reflexes. He ends its miserable life in a heartbeat before pivoting to face the next victim. Intercepting another assault head-on, Kaiser effortlessly blocks the strike and delivers a beautiful decisive horizontal slash, cleaving the monster in two. Suddenly, the passive effect of his Weapon Master trait kicks in, granting him access to a lethal hidden skill, Exploit Weakness. Our boy is visibly satisfied with his exponential growth. He snatches a short dagger and buries it deep into a goblin's eye socket, executing a flawless high-damage critical hit. The remaining goblins attempt to swarm him from all sides. One of them swings a heavy club at his skull. Kaiser bats it away instantly, mastering the weapon's special property and seizing the club for himself. This man goes full Asian parent mode on his monstrous opponents. First, he drives the dagger through a monster's throat, before pulverizing its face with the stolen club, reducing the creature to a bloody, unrecognizable paste. His weapon proficiency skyrockets in the heat of battle, forcing his level to surge upward. So far, the results of this hunt are exceeding all expectations. He knew he could learn skills without restrictions, but he had no idea he could integrate them so seamlessly mid-combat. Despite the physical exhaustion, he's riding the high of this rapid progression. However, those watching from the sidelines are questioning their own sanity. The party leader is paralyzed, unable to fathom how a solo player achieved what an entire elite party would struggle to do against a horde. This man is operating on a completely different plane of existence to handle such a threat. and the name Kaiser is beginning to carry a very familiar heavy weight. Shield Best genuinely wonders if he's standing in the shadow of the legend from the old days. But he tries to shake off the ridiculous thought. After all, that legendary genius ranker vanished from the face of the earth for 2 entire years. There's no way the ghost of Demlock just randomly joined his party, right? He's left wondering just who this monster really is. Kaiser looks like a total yandere right now, absolutely intoxicated by his own potential. Snapping back to reality. Kaiser watches the monster's corpse dissolve into pixels. Realizing the stolen weapons will vanish with the enemy, still he's thrilled. He bypassed his limit, so he pops open his status window. He checks his progress and grins. A single hunt has catapulted him up 3 levels and he's just getting started. Despite having the freedom to wield any weapon, Kaiser remains loyal to his blade, dumping all his attribute points into strength and agility. Since his other stats are bolstered by powerful item buffs and passive traits, he takes a moment to breathe and celebrate his gains. His new teammates immediately begin showering him with praise, absolutely floored by his god-tier mechanics. Shield Best jokingly hails him as the real Kaiser, while the others struggle to find a reason why the original legend would ever return to the grind. Yet, witnessing his skills firsthand, they can't deny he's the best of the best. The truth is staring them in the face, and as they bicker, Kaiser can't help but internalize the irony. Considering he actually is the legendary Kaiser they're obsessing over. Driven by curiosity, they ask if his insane damage output comes from pulling a mythic tier patron deity. He remains humble, politely explaining that his power stems from a perfect synergy of traits and titles. They're stunned by his elite loadout, wondering if he intends to reclaim his throne as a top-tier ranker. A heavy silence falls over the group as they contemplate the road ahead. Shield Best breaks the tension, suggesting they resume the hunt now that their stamina has recovered. The rest of the crew is itching for a fight, and Kaiser is more than ready to oblige. The party's confidence has skyrocketed, though they've become entirely dependent on Kaiser's overwhelming contribution. But as they talk, he's haunted by memories of his old comrades who always relied on him to carry the weight of every raid. Still, he remembers those days with a smirk, wondering where his former brothers-in-arms are now. Suddenly, a high-priority alert flashes. An urgent mini-boss quest has appeared. The objective is to slay a mutant goblin with no time limit, a rare encounter that even catches Kaiser off guard. We shift to the jagged entrance of a dark cavern where the party stands united, ready to face the mutant goblin and claim their glory. The archer and mage are visibly trembling, unable to hide the crushing anxiety weighing on their chests. Even though they've ground relentlessly to reach level 9, our hero understands the source of their dread. The dungeon ahead is notorious, a brutal gauntlet widely feared among players as the newbie slayer. Kaiser recalls the horror stories and frantic forum reviews detailing the endless death loops and failed attempts within these walls. A first try clear is statistically impossible, earning this hellhole the grim nickname the Artist's Tomb among the player base. As they cross the threshold, Kaiser calculates the extreme difficulty of the terrain, realizing it demands flawless frame-perfect teamwork to have even a ghost of a chance at success. As the team descends into the gloom, they grumble that a place this sadistic should be banned and erased from the game's servers. Listening to the wave of negativity, the party leader steps up. Shield Best rallies the troops, reminding them that conquering this dungeon is the only way to earn a ticket to high-level raids. It's the same as the real world. Top-tier companies have no interest in rookies without a proven track record. The major guilds follow the same cold logic, making this clear mandatory for anyone dreaming of joining a pro-tier party. The game even enforces strict anti-cheat protocols, recording every feat in a permanent book of adventures. There's no faking it here. Your legacy is written in blood and confirmed by the system. Kaiser knows he must dominate this trial if he wants a seat at the table in the next city's boss raids. While skipping the boss is technically possible, the gatekeepers in the next zone will bar entry to anyone who hasn't proven their worth here. This is Kaiser's chance to prove he still possesses the caliber of a world-class guild leader. The party finally reaches the inner sanctum where the infamous Arda waits in the shadows. The system panel flickers. Maximum 4 players, level 10 cap conditions. They meet with surgical precision. Kaiser checks in with the group. Yubing nods instantly, her eyes sharp with focus, claiming she's rehearsed the strategy over 10 times to ensure she doesn't slip up. Shield Best places his hand on the gate, initiating the quest. One by one, the party accepts the challenge without a moment's hesitation. The heavy stone doors groan open, revealing the blood-stained arena of the Goblin Warrior. Arda the Mutant. Kaiser readies his blade, his heart racing with the thrill of a real challenge after so much time away from the front lines. Suddenly, the monstrosity lunges into the light, a twisted, murderous grin carved across its hideous face. He's a literal wall of meat with a staggering 20,000 HP, and unleashes a guttural roar as he prepares to pulverize the group of mortals who dared to disturb his slumber. Yubin is rattled by the terrifying realism, frantically wondering if this is a game or if she's been isekai'd for real. Kaiser's voice cuts through the panic, commanding everyone to stay focused. As the monstrous boss initiates a thunderous charge straight for their throats, Shield Best steals a glance at Kaiser, worrying that no matter how cracked he is, he can't possibly protect the entire squad from a multi-directional slaughter. Stepping up with grit, he raises his massive shield and barks at the backline to retreat, bracing his entire frame. To absorb the bone-shattering momentum of the boss's collision, he successfully staggers the beast and screams for the team to seize the opening, demanding they unleash every ounce of DPS they've got. But Arda, the mutant goblin, isn't that easy to put down. It recovers instantly, swinging its jagged blade in a second arc, but the tank locks it down, holding the line with his shield while triggering his protection trait, a skill that reinforces his defense and vitality as long as his allies are tucked safely behind him. Meanwhile, Kaiser is a blur of motion dancing through the air and carving into the goblin's flesh. The beast shrieks and recoils. Shieldbest grins at the retreating monster, feeling like they might actually breeze through phase 1. "Aim for the head," Kaiser shouts, warning him that the next mechanic is starting. The tank is baffled because that pattern shouldn't trigger until 50% HP. He freezes in shock as he checks the boss's health bar and realizes the condition has already been met. Just then, our hero launches into the air once more, his blade shearing through the goblin's arm. With a cold smirk, he announces that the boss's signature pattern has been officially neutralized. A flash to the past reveals Kaiser mid-interview. The reporter is desperate to know the secret behind his party's legendary win streak. Our hero casually shrugs, stating that they simply focus on their individual specialities. The interviewer notes their unconventional party composition, which usually requires 4 roles: tank, DPS, healer, and support. She points out that Kaiser's squad is missing a dedicated tank and asks how they survive high-tier raids without a meat shield. Kaiser admits that tanks are crucial for most, especially for interrupting a boss's lethal skill rotations. However, he then drops a bombshell, shocking the reporter by revealing that he handles the tanking duties himself through sheer offensive pressure. Snapping back to the present, Arda is howling in agony, its patterns broken and its limbs shredded by Kaiser's relentless assault. Shieldbest is in total disbelief. In his experience, even elite tanks struggle to interrupt a boss this effectively. Yet here is their attacker pulling off a miracle and controlling the entire fight with a single blade. The goblin warrior lunges for a desperate counter, only to be systematically dismantled by Kaiser yet again. The archer is vibrating with hype, noticing that their carry is sniping nothing but the beast's most vital organs. By now, Kaiser has shut down another major mechanic, and the boss is spiraling toward its final 25% HP. Shieldbest bellows for the team to brace themselves for the transition into phase 2. The mage and archer ready their spells, refusing to let Kaiser hog all the glory in this final stretch. The mutant warrior finally awakens its hidden trait, and descends into a terrifying blood-red berserk state. Our boy already saw this coming, mentally cataloging the boss's unique arsenal. He remembers the data Arda has been cursed with 2 specific traits by the developers. The notorious 007 bang mechanics. The first trait cripples the challengers with a massive debuff if the boss is struck by physical attacks 4 times or more. The second trait allows it to reflect all magic damage back at the caster after the 3rd spell hit. On top of that, the berserk aura drains the party's movement speed by a punishing 4%. The archer complains about the unfair debuffs, whining that the boss is getting more broken by the second, despite doing 0 actual damage. Kaiser, however, stands his ground, completely immune to the debuff's effects. His personal trait allows him to bypass the berserk pressure and look the monster right in the eye, which only fuels his adrenaline. While Shieldbest barks orders to prioritize evasion and play it safe for now, Kaiser has an entirely different strategy in mind. He declares his intent to simply butcher the monstrosity where it stands, and lunges forward with lethal intent, executing a flurry of heavy slashes as if the word failure doesn't exist. As expected, the MC is an absolute force of nature, carving through the beast's hide, making a high-tier struggle look like child's play. Meanwhile, the archer and mage are reeling, unable to grasp how Kaiser is ignoring the debuffs. Even Shieldbest has completely abandoned the thought of a potential wipe. He gazes at Kaiser in awe, more convinced than ever that this man is the living legend, the mythical Kaiser of the old days. The trio is relegated to mere spectators, watching as Kaiser maintains a relentless cadence of sword strikes against the goblin. Mid-slaughter, our hero's experience bar caps out at level 10, and his swordsmanship mastery ascends to level 7, granting him a permanent 7% boost to all blade-based damage. He charges the staggering goblin for the coup de grace, materializing before the beast like a ghost, and bisecting it with a single instantaneous vertical draw. The system confirms the kill. The mutant goblin warrior Arda has been decimated and the dungeon is officially cleared. But there is no immediate victory cheer. Shieldbest is paralyzed by his own thoughts, trying to process if the monster before them is truly the legendary Kaiser or just a god-tier doppelganger. Upon hearing this, the rest of the party is left in a state of total shock. The system then announces they've shattered the server record, claiming first place in the time attack rankings. Loot is distributed by contribution, and unsurprisingly, Kaiser dominates the scoreboard. He secures a red leader top along with a mountain of rare goblin materials, most of which are destined to be vendor fodder for him. Furthermore, he unlocks the Throne of Time attack title, granting him a 10% buff to his speed stat. Kaiser stands amidst the dungeon's remains, basking in the familiar glow of victory, once again reigning supreme at the top of the leaderboard. The others are ecstatic, losing their minds over the god tier drops they just pulled. The archer and mage begin worshipping our hero as if he were a deity, but he just offers a cool nonchalant smirk in response. Shieldbest approaches him looking visibly flustered and apologetic, pointing out that because the tank was the party leader, his name is the one plastered on the world rankings. He profusely apologizes for forgetting to swap leader permissions before they initiated the run. Kaiser realizes that having a first place world record tied to your name is a massive power move. An achievement like this is a golden ticket into any of the top 10 elite guilds, even for a starter tier dungeon. They've effectively stolen the spotlight from the notorious top player Annihilation. The tank continues to grovel, even offering a cash payout to compensate for the stolen glory. Our boy just chuckles and brushes it off with a wave of his hand, understanding that these technicalities are part of the game. The system auto-registers the leader's tag upon entry, and none of them truly expected to break a world record. Secretly, he's relieved. Staying under the radar is much easier for his long-term plans. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the loot. Specifically, the warrior set, regardless of how the RNG rolls its final grade. It stands as one of the most elite drops obtainable in this godforsaken zone. Since he practically farmed every single grade available in one go, our hero decides that a mere ranking name can't dampen his spirits, while a wicked grin spreads across his face. The tank remains hesitant, asking if he's genuinely okay with the credit swap. Our boy just waves it off, telling the squad to take a damn chill pill. The party immediately begins worshipping him, floored by his legendary selflessness. Suddenly, the system blares an alert. The dungeon instance is reaching its collapse point. Shieldbest whispers to the archer that he once thought the Kaiser legends were pure hyperbole, but now he finally realizes the sheer magnitude of the man standing before them. Noticing the group is still rooted in place, Kaiser asks if they're planning to move in permanently. That sharp remark snaps them back to reality, and they instantly bolt toward the exit portal at top speed. Returning to the village, they navigate the grimy back alleys to find the alchemist. The squad enters the workshop only to be stunned by the eerie atmosphere of the interior, while Kaiser eyes the hooded figure, lurking ominously behind the counter. He identifies the man as Calda the Alchemist, noting his visibly rotten temperament. The rest of the team starts having second thoughts about even approaching the guy. The alchemist begins mocking them, asking if they've already tucked tail, and reminds them he requires fresh blood for his dark research. Our boy shuts him up by slamming the vial of crimson essence onto the counter. The alchemist is blindsided, unable to comprehend how they finish in under 40 minutes, gazing at the group's absolute confidence. The cranky old alchemist actually starts blushing like a flustered schoolgirl. The system notifies Kaiser that he's earned a stack of gold and a rare silver ring crafted by the eccentric man. With the quest finalized, the path to the main continent is finally paved in gold. The team erupts into a wild celebration, acting like they just hit $1 billion jackpot. A hidden notification then flashes. Kaiser has also received a special gift from Calda. He pockets the mystery item for later, choosing instead to burn his low-grade skill ticket reward. The interface begins to bleed a strange, ethereal light, as spectral cards drift through the air, filling the entire room, activating his Broken Eye of Truth ability. He scans the deck, realizing most of the options are common-grade garbage. His eyes lock onto Charging Slash, the very same signature move he mastered back in Demrock. Kaiser recalls that this lottery spans the entire spectrum from pathetic common to god-tier legendary. Suddenly, a red system warning screams that his session is about to be terminated. The alert catches our hero completely off guard, breaking his concentration. He completely lost track of the safety timer designed to stop players from starving to death in their capsules. Kaiser is stunned to realize 10 hours have vanished in the blink of an eye. He frantically sorts through the cards while the system begins its cold final countdown. Just as his finger makes contact with the glowing screen, the system triggers a forced logout, plunging him into darkness. Back in the waking world, he takes a few hollow moments to process the sudden disconnection, before letting out a scream of pure frustration like he just took a low blow to the gut. The following morning, he manages to regain his composure after some much-needed beauty sleep, and wastes no time diving back into the gaming capsule. The moment the neural link stabilizes and he's back online, he lunges for the system menu, desperately recalling the golden shimmer he saw before the crash. His heart sinks when he sees the card wasn't a legendary grade after all, and he sighs, figuring his god-tier luck has finally run dry. His brain does a complete double-take when he realizes he's actually snagged the backstab ability. This broken, overpowered skill is the exact reason ranged fighters dread crossing paths with high-tier assassins. No matter how much they struggle to keep their distance, this skill lets an assassin close the gap in a heartbeat, and Kaiser starts grinning like a certified madman. The realization hits him. He's secured a top-tier rogue skill without even being locked into the assassin class. If he keeps stacking game-breaking abilities like this, he'll become an absolute god on the battlefield. Just then, some wannabe hotshot strolls by, desperately trying to impress his girlfriend by bragging about his supposed pro player status. But the moment they catch a glimpse of the unhinged, predatory look on our boy's face, the couple panics, doing a total 180 and sprinting in the opposite direction. Finally snapping back to reality from his power fantasy, Kaiser decides it's time to actually equip his new hoard of loot. He decks himself out in high-tier gear, instantly upgrading his drip and his stats. With the portal shimmering before him, he decides it's finally time to conquer the main continent. He briefly recalls that he never even gave a proper farewell to the squad, the ragtag group he'd been grinding with. Even though he was actually starting to feel a sense of camaraderie with them, he shrugs it off as fate's design, and finally steps through the gate, diving headfirst into the world's deeper lore. Every player who survived the ARD trials is ecstatic to reach the mainland. Unlike the country-locked starter zones, this is a global melting pot where the world's best converge. His first destination on this grand journey is the city of Raven. As our boy approaches the massive gates, a squadron of knights gallops past, dragging a shackled criminal behind them while the system floods his vision with new alerts, announcing that legendary regions and specialized job classes are now officially accessible, but his beginner protection has expired. Seeing the complexity of the world, Kaiser realizes this game is top tier for a reason. A jovial, stout NPC approaches him offering a frothy mug of beer on the house. Others swarm him as well, dangling free items and perks to welcome the newcomer. For a moment, the sheer density of the world leaves him lost in thought. He eventually shakes it off, stretching his arms and reminding himself that the distractions can wait. His mind is focused on one thing, finding the most efficient hunting grounds to start his reign. An indefinite amount of time later, he's already knee-deep in monster guts on the outskirts of the city. The warrior set is putting in massive work, granting him bonus damage against goblins and absurd power buffs. Utilizing his rushing slash, he becomes a silver blur, zipping through enemy ranks, reducing every monster in his path to literal mincemeat. What's even more insane is that with every confirmed kill, his greatsword absorbs the essence, growing visibly more formidable. The blade was already a monstrous weapon to begin with, but the fact that it possesses infinite growth potential has him vibrating with excitement as he monitors his skill tree. He realizes the next massive power spike is just a few kills away. Suddenly, his eye of truth flares to life, pinpointing a cowardly figure lurking in the shadows of the bushes. The hidden thug is practically drooling at the sight of the high-tier warrior set, thinking he's stumbled upon a golden jackpot. Unable to contain his greed a second longer, he lunges from the shadows with a jagged knife, only for Kaiser to effortlessly swat the attack aside with cold indifference. The bandit's camouflage shatters and our boy stares him down with a suffocating murderous aura. The man recoils in pure terror, and frantically screams for his hidden goons to back him up. An archer suddenly unleashes a volley of arrows at Kaiser's head, but they're deflected as easily as if they were harmless paper balls. Another thug wielding a heavy axe charges in, only to have his momentum shattered by a perfect parry, like a pathetic low-tier mob. Our protagonist then carves through the thug's defenses with surgical precision. While the remaining two realize they've just made a fatal mistake by targeting the wrong man, the cowardly assassin attempts a desperate retreat, but Kaiser teleports instantly, cutting off his escape. Mockingly asking if the little baby lost his parents in the woods, Kaiser recalls how these player killers infested his previous games. From the lowliest RPG to the king of games, Sword Art Online, there were always cowards looking for easy prey. Some did it for the loot, while others were simply sociopaths gaining sick pleasure from murder. Our pro gamer knows them by a more humiliating name, noob hunters, a tier below actual PK ears. The scene shifts back to our hero, looming over the terrified hunter who is on the verge of wetting himself. The noob PKer is baffled, unable to comprehend how an ordinary swordsman just executed a high-level assassin's backstab. But before his brain can process the tactical impossibility, the assassin boy is sent straight back to the respawn screen. Kaiser systematically wipes out the rest of the squad, even those with ridiculous handles like Not Your Mom. Instead of flagging him as a criminal, the game's AI recognizes the encounter as a legitimate act of self-defense. However, after sweeping the trash, our hero is briefly reminded of the genuine comrades he left behind in Arda. He decides to conceal his high-tier gear to avoid drawing more bottom-feeding PK ears while he focuses on the grind. Tucking away his glowing equipment, he heads out to blitz through his remaining quest log. In record time, he clears a mountain of objectives, hitting level 17 and unlocking the restricted West Gate. Kaiser, true to his nature, storms through the gate into the Raven West Forest, ignoring the dire warnings from local NPCs. They speak in hushed tones about the lethal reputation of these hunting grounds, insisting that if a player values their life, they should turn back the moment they sense danger. Our hero immediately feels the suffocating pressure emanating from the ancient dense canopy. Giant predatory insects swarm the skies while goblin tribes plot lethal ambushes from the undergrowth. According to the player forums, this zone is a nightmare for solo players to navigate. The community has established a survival rule: never enter without a balanced party of at least 3 members. Because of this, the West Gate is a chaotic hub of desperate players begging for teammates, hoping to find enough meat shields and damage dealers to survive the forest's horrors. While most are hunting for DPS units, the real demand is for the rarest resource, healers. Healers, however, are a shunned Shinro class. Most players find the role boring, thankless, and agonizingly slow to level up. As Kaiser walks past the crowds alone, they mock him, calling him a broke loser who can't even find a pity invite. Our hero simply sighs, his heart racing with the quiet thrill of the challenge. Deep within the lightless woods, he moves with the grace of a predator, cleaving through goblin scouts who find themselves victims of their own ambush tactics. One goblin thinks it's found an easy meal, but its strike misses completely before it's pulverized into the dirt. A goblin archer tries to snipe the poor boy from the shadows, but Kaiser predicts the trajectory and hurls his massive greatsword like a javelin. The heavy blade spins through the air, bisecting the archer's torso in a spray of pixels. Seeing him temporarily unarmed, the remaining goblins cackle, thinking they finally have an opening. The legendary ranker, however, is never truly out of options. He instantly summons an axe from his infinite inventory and chains a series of backstabs into crushing downward executions. He dismantles the pack one by one, even triggering a notification that his axe mastery has leveled up. The moment he finishes the goblin extermination quest, his senses flare, detecting a massive vibration approaching from the rear. A gargantuan armored centipede lunges forward, looking to fill its gut with hero meat. The sudden shockwave sends birds scattering from the trees in a frantic panic. Kaiser vaults into the air, the apex predator snapping at his heels. He unleashes a thunderous war cry, putting the full weight of his stats into a massive mid-air spin, channeling every ounce of momentum into a single bone-crushing strike. The centipede's carapace shatters as the impact sends the colossal beast hurtling backward. But in a heartbeat, the beast recoils and springs back with lethal speed. Driven by a feral determination to claim its revenge, our hero reacts with frame-perfect timing, intercepting the massive strike. He summons a battle axe into his offhand, noting the creature's grotesque features before delivering a thunderous swing. The heavy edge shears through the centipede's mandibles like paper. 2 clinical follow-up strikes from his blade are all it takes to silence the monster for good. The victory chime sounds as Kaiser's status window confirms a double level up. He mutters that the grind is no walk in the park, yet he's satisfied with his rapid progression through the quest log. His gaze lands on a standard Westgate objective, retrieving a lost pendant. Knowing the exact coordinates, he prepares to move out. Upon arrival, he finds the area swarming with other adventurers, all loitering in a tedious line while Kaiser zeroes in on a specific tree, identifying it as the precise spawn point for the quest item. In the background, the air is thick with the grumbling of players frustrated by the agonizingly slow wait times. Among the idle chatter, a specific rumor regarding an execution order on griefers catches his ear. Men are arguing that a certain assassin got exactly what he deserved for his recklessness, and one of them mentions that the player responsible goes by the name Kaiser. Warning bells scream in our hero's head as he realizes he's already becoming a person of interest. The men continue, baffled by how a supposed swordsman could pull off a high-level backstab maneuver. He hopes no one would actually buy into such an absurd, far-fetched theory. Still, the leak is enough to make him realize he needs to vanish into the shadows. A swordsman with assassin skills and 6 traits is a game-breaking anomaly the major guilds would kill to control. They'd either try to chain him to a contract, or failing, that the psychopaths would move to eliminate such a rare talent, especially the elite sharks from Demrock, whose only creed is to seize power or destroy it. He snatches the pendant from its perch, reminding himself that any overt display of power right now would be a fatal mistake. Back at the West Gate, Camilla's face lights up with pure radiance as she accepts her recovered heirloom, showering our hero with heartfelt gratitude. Kaiser bags a gold coin, a chunk of XP, and a mystery gift. He hits level 20, triggering a skill draw. Ticket reward, as Camilla claims the pendant is her soul's treasure. Yet she offers a piece of it to Kaiser. He accepts the reward, sternly advising her not to be so careless next time. Camilla beams at him once more, and as she offers a shy smile, his max affinity passive suddenly procs, causing her trust in him to skyrocket to insane levels. The sudden spike in the affinity meter catches even Kaiser off guard. He brushes it off as the innocence of youth before shifting focus to a high-stakes dungeon. Quest, a subjugation mission that rewards a draw ticket he can't afford to ignore. He weighs his options between the 2 Westgate dungeons, the Goblin Chief's Stronghold or the Ant Nest. Relying on his warrior class stats, he opts for the Goblins, though both instances strictly require a coordinated party. Our hero knows he has to keep his god tier abilities under wraps for the time being. So he approaches the dungeon entrance as just another face in the crowd where adventurers are frantically scrambling, desperately shouting for a level 20 mage to join their ranks, while nearby, merchant types and blacksmiths add to the deafening roar of the marketplace-like atmosphere. He's surprised to see so many production class players congregating at the dungeon gate, watching as low-tier thieves and overconfident rookies are rejected one after another. Meanwhile, the few available mages are swarmed like royalty, with parties literally begging for their help. He recalls that the social hierarchy here is dictated by a class's utility against the dungeon's specific mechanics, a fact that elevates mages to the status of living deities in this particular raid. It dawns on him that in the eyes of the public, a lone swordsman is essentially dead weight. But just then, a voice calls out from the chaos behind him. He turns to find a player, offering him a spot in their crew if he hasn't already found a home. Kaiser clarifies his lowly swordsman status, but they claim they don't mind. They just need one more body to fill the slot for a quick quest run. His instincts scream that something is fishy, but he decides to play the part of the unsuspecting noob. He clicks accept as the system invitation flickers onto his screen. But with a single glance at their hidden party stats, it becomes glaringly obvious that these people already know exactly who they're dealing with. Flashing back a few minutes, they had spotted him standing out like a beacon in the crowd, likely betrayed by his high-tier Red Warrior armor set. No genuine rookie wanders around with gear that high tier, which immediately gave Bastard Sword a predatory idea. Living up to his namesake, the sleazy leader signals the dive. They plunge into the Goblin Chief's high-difficulty lair, clutching torches that barely pierce the suffocating gloom. The raid ignites as they drop a Red Goblin Scout, triggering a system alert that the Chief is now hunting them. The party leader and tank put on a macho display, flexing their high-level stats, and for a moment, our boy is actually impressed by their synchronized teamwork and massive damage output. Moments later, the Goblin Chief unleashes a tide of reinforcements to purge the intruders. Dozens of crimson eyes ignite in the dark as the stone walls vibrate from a thunderous stampede barreling toward them. Suddenly, playing the part of generous mentors, the squad asks Kaiser if he wants to solo the wave, promising they'll have his back if things get dicey. The mage girl chirps in, claiming it's the perfect synergy test, and swearing on her life she'll provide cover fire if he's overwhelmed. Kaiser smells the betrayal from a mile away, but he's not the type to tuck tail and run. He detonates into the goblin horde with a surgical charging/reaping through the redskins as if he were cleaving through cardboard practice dummies. The leader's hunch is verified. Kaiser's lethal combat flow screams elite veteran, confirming he's the high-value target they've been tracking. The greasy leader whispers to his tank demanding an immediate evaluation of the newcomer's true potential. The tank grunts back, admitting that this guy is definitely no second-rate amateur. It's glaringly obvious. Kaiser possesses razor-sharp evasion and snipes vital points, with a speed that shouldn't be possible for a greatsword wielder. Still, the tank finds an inconsistency. He argues that while the kid is fast, he shouldn't have been able to humiliate a seasoned pro like Assassin Boy 69. After all, assassins are a completely different breed of predator. With stealth and venom at their disposal, they are the undisputed kings of PvP, often winning 1v3 brawls without breaking a sweat. Tired of the tactical breakdown, the mage girl tells them to shut up and focus. The plan is to dump his body in a ditch regardless, so the details are irrelevant. Hearing that the leader gives the tank a subtle nod to initiate the betrayal, the three vultures slowly close the distance from behind, feigning support while waiting for an opening. Kaiser remains hyper-aware of his surroundings even while stacking goblin bodies like cordwood. His teammates begin showering him with hollow praise, claiming his swordsmanship is so cracked he could probably solo the entire dungeon without them. Our boy flashes them a predatory grin, casually remarking that they aren't half bad themselves. The tank continues to butter him up, telling the leader they've stumbled upon a hardcore gamer worthy of their respect. But Kaiser isn't the type to drown in cheap flattery. He knows there are only two reasons they'd throw him into a meat grinder, either as bait, or to loot his corpse after he's exhausted, but they haven't pulled the trigger yet. The leader urges the party deeper into the lair, not out of a sense of urgency, but because he's hunting for the ultimate kill zone. The exact moment where our hero will be most vulnerable to being erased from the server, the party carves through wave after wave of mindless monsters. Yet the mage girl suspiciously keeps missing her support shots, nearly hitting Kaiser. The leader barks at her for her terrible aim. She shamelessly deflects, blaming the chaotic goblin movements for obstructing her line of sight. The three saboteurs are already winded, frustrated that Kaiser seems to have the luck of the devil. Meanwhile, Kaiser is genuinely stunned by how pathetic her accidental friendly fire is, considering he's practically baiting her to take the shot. They finally reach the boss sanctum, their final window of opportunity. The massive stone gates groan open, exhaling a heavy, oppressive aura. Two elite goblin sentinels stomp forward, serving as the chief's personal executioners. Ready to pulverize the trespassers, the leader barks an order for Kaiser to tank both elites, while they handle something critical in the backline. To their absolute horror, Kaiser vanishes into thin air, leaving the elite sentinels to lock onto the three traitors instead. The tank bellows that the slippery little rat must have sniffed out their entire plot. The mage girl screams at the panicking tank to shut up and fight before they're wiped. The two men desperately parry the goblin's clubs, yelling for her to incinerate the threats before they get flattened into paste. The girl begins chanting her most powerful fireball spell, but the incantation is cut short as a massive boulder whistles through the air, nearly taking her head off. She barely rolls out of the way. The girl freezes in terror as she comes face to face with the absolute unit who threw at the goblin chief. A mountain of lard with a double chin that would put a politician to shame. He bellows a roar that rattles the very foundation of the cave. The tank screams at her, asking how much longer she plans to stand there daydreaming in the middle of a boss fight. But the mage girl looks like she's just stared into the eyes of the Reaper himself. Kaiser suddenly flickers back into existence, casually asking his friends if they happen to be close associates of that assassin boy he slaughtered earlier. Trapped and terrified, she blurts out the truth but pleads with him to help clear the boss first, arguing that survival is impossible without a full party. Kaiser nods, admitting that from a logical standpoint. She is absolutely 100% correct. She exhales a tiny sigh of relief, thinking he's been fooled right, until a 2-foot blade plunges straight through her chest. Right where her heart used to be, with that cold execution, Kaiser makes one thing clear. He has absolutely zero interest in taking the logical path of cooperation. While the surviving duo is busy wrestling with the elite goblin sentinels, Kaiser casually receives a notification for purging an evildoer. His trap has sprung perfectly. The moment the elites appeared, he used backstab on a nearby corpse to vanish in plain sight. A tactical ghost that no one noticed in the chaos. He simply lurked in the shadows, waiting for the trio to be consumed by the battle. Now the cult leader stares at him in sheer disbelief, questioning if he's completely lost his mind. Surely he doesn't intend to drag them all into an early grave together? Kaiser calmly invites him to take a guess at his personal motto. Irritating the man who is in no mood for riddles, Kaiser then draws a familiar jagged dagger and spells it out plainly. He does not break bread with backstabbing parasites. The leader's jaw hits the floor when he recognizes the blade it belonged to Assassin Boy 69, and now it's in Kaiser's lethal grip. Our boy flashes a wide, menacing smirk, amused that the guy can identify his dead friend's gear so quickly. The leader is baffled as to why a swordsman is wielding a dagger. In his mind, a dagger in a greatsword user's hand is as useless as a monkey with a screwdriver. He demands to know how Kaiser expects to solo this dungeon after executing the only 2 people who could have carried him. The Goblin Chief's innate resistance to physical damage is notoriously absurd. There's no way he can chip away that mountain of HP with a tiny toothpick no matter how many times he swings. Kaiser merely shrugs, explaining that his strategy is elementary status effects, like bleed bypass, physical resistance, and that's his golden ticket to an easy win. The leader screams back, claiming it's impossible for a simple bleed tick to solo a high-ranking dungeon boss. Grinning like he's holding all the aces, Kaiser calmly clarifies that he isn't using some common low-tier bleed effect. In the next heartbeat, the leader watches him vanish, only to feel a cold blade at his throat before he can even blink. His health bar plummets into the red. The power gap between him and Kaiser is an unbridgeable chasm, and the wider that stat gap, the more catastrophic his bleed becomes. Both the elite soldier and the party leader suddenly begin coughing up staggering amounts of gore. Choking on his own blood, the leader curses the game design for punishing his high stats. He realizes a 4-level gap shouldn't hit this hard unless there's a hidden multiplier at play. Kaiser observes the carnage he's unleashed with a sense of quiet predatory satisfaction. On paper, it was just a standard level 20 gacha skill, but he discovered a rare hidden condition attached to it. A stacking mechanic that is nearly non-existent in most games, allowing him to multiply his bleed damage to game-breaking levels. Completely broken and unable to comprehend the logic, the party leader screams hacker. With his final wheezing breath, he calls Kaiser a filthy cheating bastard. Pretty rich coming from a cowardly player-killer unironically named Bastard Sword. Seeing his leader's corpse dissolve, the tank bellows his friend's name in a state of pure unadulterated panic. His expression says it all. He finally realizes he's picked a fight with a monster and he's knee-deep in his own grave. The flawless plan has left his team cold on the floor, and they were never the hunters. Kaiser has been the one pulling their strings from the very start, treating them like mindless puppets. By the time the tank realizes he needs to run, the curtain has already closed. The heavily armored warrior drops, like a sack of dead weight after a single clinical slash from the dagger. He staggers to his knees, clutching his throat as the life drains out of him. He survives just a few more agonizing seconds before finally kicking the bucket. With that, our boy has successfully purged the scheming players along with the elite guards. The goblin chief, who had been content watching from his throne, suddenly remembers he's the main attraction. Seeing his loyalists fall, the boss lets out a thunderous roar. Kaiser exhales slowly, acknowledging he still has one enraged, oversized fatty left to butcher. Since he's already made the trip, he figures he might as well enjoy the exercise. The boss leaps from his perch, attempting to flatten Kaiser with the weight of a dozen semi-trucks. Since its physical defense hasn't proxied yet, a savage knee to the jaw sends the massive menace tumbling backward in a daze. Hurt and humiliated, the beast activates selfish defense, reducing all incoming physical strikes to practically zero damage. Without missing a beat, Kaiser triggers his high-speed thief skills again, slicing through the boss from a dozen angles at once. Just like before, blood sprays from the goblin chief, like water erupting from a punctured balloon. The creature spins around, eyes burning with fury after seeing half its health evaporate in a single burst. Its gaze meets Kaiser's, who stares back with the cold, calculating eyes of a butcher deciding which cut of meat to grill first. The chief's bloodlust evaporates in an instant. With a high-pitched, panicked squeal, the beast bolts, marking the first time in history a boss has fled its own arena. Our boy closes the distance with a clinical backstab, while the goblin frantically looks back, praying it escaped the nightmare. But as the monster whips its flabby double chin forward, it finds its executioner inches from its throat, ready to carve some monster-grade pork cutlets. The Goblin Chief shrieks in absolute terror as he's handed a one-way express ticket to hell. The system chime echoes, officially confirming the slaughter. He secures a level up along with the Chief's repulsive, sweat-soaked belt, a grim trophy, but he needed a new waist piece anyway. Our hero briefly laments not snagging a time attack rank, but since there was no timer active, he lets the matter drop, despite the lingering itch. He shifts his focus to the mountain of loot left behind by the traitors, and as he picks up a discarded shield, he realizes those pathetic thugs had actually spent a small fortune on their loadouts. Even the leader's blade was top-tier craftsmanship wasted on a coward. Though the man lived up to his bastard moniker, he's officially been retired from the world of the living. Just as Kaiser reaches for a necklace to inspect the stats, his eye of truth surges to life, catching a faint, anomalous shimmer in the distance. He initially suspects a high-level stealth user, but the radiance is far too pure and brilliant for a common rogue. As he gravitates toward the light, the system interface flares, informing him that he has stumbled upon a hidden dungeon. The notification catches him completely off guard as we dive back into the game's secret lore. Dungeons are tiered by rarity, and at the absolute peak are hidden dungeons. Mythical sites that leave even veteran explorer classes balding with frustration trying to find them. Their entrances are tucked away in impossible locations with bizarre nonsensical entry requirements. Back to our protagonist. He's floored by the sheer absurdity of the conditions required to trigger this specific instance. In a zone that practically demands a full raid party, he had to discover this hidden door while standing completely solo. But he quickly smirks, knowing the greatest risks always yield the most legendary rewards. The moment he sees the hero grade reward tag, he's fired up, swearing to conquer this tomb no matter the cost. A famous pro once said that entering a hidden dungeon is like resting your head inside a predator's maw. Most players agree that the second you drop your guard, the beast snaps its jaws shut to crush your skull. A hidden dungeon is a master of camouflage, simply waiting for a complacent victim to wander into its open throat. Back to the action, Kaiser crosses the threshold only to be slammed by a crushing environmental debuff, attempting to shroud his vision in a claustrophobic tunnel effect. However, his hero trait instantly ignites, burning through the curse and restoring his 20/20 vision to perfection. The hostile welcome only serves to stoke the fires of his competitive spirit. A hooded goblin shaman emerges from the gloom, mockingly praising his bravery for entering this death trap alone. Kaiser surveys the room, coming face to face with a sea of rotting undead goblins and mutated spiders. And for a split second, the sheer grotesqueness of the horde creeps him out. Misinterpreting his reaction as fear, the shaman cackles like a deranged maniac, gaining a surge of overconfidence. However, our boy is just shocked to find a named boss here. Even in a high-level dungeon, a named boss is in a league of its own. He recalls the god-tier loot he reaped from the dragon and starts salivating over the treasures this shaman is hiding. The shaman begins a classic villain monologue, baffled that a mere human found his sanctum when he clearly isn't an explorer. He even notes that Kaiser's aura is a chaotic, potent cocktail of multiple conflicting powers. Our hero is genuinely surprised to find a goblin with an IQ higher than room temperature. The shaman's tone turns icy as he declares that Kaiser's life ends here, unleashing his legion of the undead. But our boy doesn't flinch, firing back that he's about to take the monster to school. Triggering backstab, he gives the shaman one final piece of advice: a long-range caster should never get comfortable when a melee god is in the room. He teleports instantly into the shaman's blind spot, but the monster was baiting him casually, yeeting an undead soldier into Kaiser's path like a meat shield, causing a violent explosion that rocks the chamber. However, the shaman's smug grin shatters when our boy pulls a full Itachi Uchiha maneuver, materializing behind him a second time, having completely bypassed the blast. And as the monster catches the cold glint of the dagger in Kaiser's hand, the shaman's eyes widen as he realizes he's already been lethally grazed. Kaiser sneers, reminding the goblin that he explicitly warned him to stay on his toes. The goblin necromancer finally drops the act, levitating a massive cluster of undead soldiers, and launches them like high-velocity projectiles toward our hero. Meanwhile, Kaiser maneuvers through the barrage with effortless grace, easily reading the trajectory of the attacks and predicting exactly what this piece of trash plans next. In a sudden shift, Kaiser finds himself pinned against the cold stone wall. The shaman erupts in a victory cackle, detonating his undead thralls in a chain reaction of dark energy. He clicks his tongue in disappointment, lamenting that he couldn't keep such a fascinating specimen alive for his experiments. Jihad mocks the fallen hero, blaming his demise on sheer recklessness and arrogance. That smug composure shatters when the man he presumed dead suddenly locks an arm around his throat from behind. Kaiser whispers that the shaman's skill rotation is over. Deciding to have some fun, he sheathes his blade and begins tenderizing Jihad with his bare fists. Rather than granting him a quick death, one bone-shattering haymaker sends the scrawny shaman hurtling into the wall with a sickening thud. The creature lets out a pathetic groan, likely never having experienced this level of sheer unadulterated bullying in its existence. Looming over the broken boss with an unyielding gaze, Kaiser makes it crystal clear who the apex predator is. Jihad clings to his tattered pride, wheezing that he will eventually repay this humiliation tenfold. Kaiser silences him with a clinical liver hook, punching the last bit of pride right out of his lungs. He follows up with a lightning-fast barrage of strikes until the dreaded shaman is reduced to wheezing and actually begging for a timeout. The hideous creature has the audacity to lecture him, whining that such excessive violence should be against the server rules. Kaiser just stares, trying to comprehend what kind of bizarre script this boss was programmed with. This sniveling coward hardly fits the heroic grade persona he expected from a hidden dungeon boss. Despite having that lethal corpse explosion skill that could wipe out elite explorers, Jihad feels incredibly underwhelming. While Kaiser is momentarily distracted, the shaman begins popping his broken bones back into place. He suddenly blinks backward to create distance, leaving Kaiser momentarily surprised by the sudden burst of speed. Jihad's arrogance returns instantly, claiming his retreat was a masterful bait to lure the hero into a false sense of security. A sinister grin spreads across his face as a suffocating black fog born from his special trait begins to consume the arena. The system flashes a warning. The shaman's rank is temporarily surging, though Kaiser remains entirely unimpressed. In his mind, a heroic rank loser who ranks up is still just a loser. That said, he's not about to let a transformation finish. Knowing that heroic plus entities usually require a 40-man raid team to even scratch, he closes the gap at terminal velocity, determined to end the farce before it escalates. He had dumped every available stat point into strength, pushing it well past the 100-point threshold. Combined with the warrior set's massive damage multipliers against Goblinkin, and the specific bonus damage against boss-type entities, the shaman might be evolving, but raw astronomical damage doesn't care about his newfound durability. He brings his greatsword down in a single world-ending overhead swing. The massive blade cleaves the goblin shaman in half from crown to crotch, ending the fight instantly. The hidden dungeon is conquered, and his adventurer's tome records him as the first explorer in history to claim the clear. He finally bags some legendary loot, including the shaman's robe and a soul orb containing the boss's essence. Then he spots a peculiar item, trace of a forgotten clan, an item with no grade and a cryptic vague description. It reminds him of the unidentified artifact drops from his prime days in Demrock. Pushing the mystery aside, he moves to claim his final ultimate reward. At a glance, he expects a stat boosting card, but it reveals itself as a heroic grade guardian card, allowing him to summon the shaman as a pet. His excitement dies a sudden death. He's not thrilled about an ugly, balding goblin following him around like a lost puppy. He had envisioned something legendary like the dragon or tiger guardians his old rivals used to flex. He decides to test the summon before trashing it, but instead of the terrifying Jihad Black, what appears is a Chibi Collector's Edition Jihad, a tiny plush-like version of the boss blinking in total confusion, gazing up at the very human it once tried to slaughter, only now Kaiser towers over it like a god. Kaiser facepalms at the pathetic miniature clown that is supposed to be his legendary guardian. The least the developers could have done was make the damn thing look somewhat intimidating. Baby Black collapses in visible despair, offended by the thought of serving a filthy human, while its traits, bully the weak and opportunist, look like a recipe for disaster. The Guardian starts with abysmal loyalty stats, making this annoying little gremlin feel more like a curse than a reward. To make matters worse, the system warns that this tiny traitor will backstab him the moment his back is turned. One look at Jihad's smug, punchable face tells Kaiser he can't let this thing roam unsupervised. Our boy slowly looms over the pint-sized Guardian. Watching the towering human approach with predatory intent, the little rascal has the nerve to ask what a filthy human wants with his greatness. Kaiser just blinks at the audacity. Calling his master filthy is a bold move, but Jihad's big mouth quickly snaps shut, realizing he just sprinted past a very dangerous line. Deciding this brain-dead shaman requires an immediate attitude adjustment, Kaiser introduces him to the true meaning of master through a very hands-on disciplinary session. Soon, the crisp thud of intensive education echoes through the cavern, and Jihad's loyalty points slowly crawl upward, one painful lesson at a time. After that grueling marathon session, our protagonist finally crawls out of his dark gaming den. He glances out to the window, stunned to see the sun already setting, and realizes he's absolutely famished. Like any true gamer, he raids the kitchen for leftovers, only to find his sister lounging on the couch shamelessly, polishing off the last bag of chips. He's tempted to call her a total loser, but as a fellow no-life, he chooses the path of peace and flops onto the couch beside her. He asks what she's watching and nearly chokes when she casually mentions she's also a GOS player. Apparently the game is such a massive trend that even she's already reached level 71. Do-hyun's brain short-circuits at the revelation, because hitting that rank should have taken her months of dedicated grinding. Except it didn't. She hit level 71 in just 6 months because some friend carried her through every single raid. Curious, he asks if it really takes that long for a solo player to hit the 70s, ruthless as ever. She fires back that progress tends to slow down when you occasionally touch grass instead of rotting in a gaming pod 10 hours a day. Bro can't decide whether to take that as a sick burn or a compliment, right? Then the live stream pivots to a breaking news segment about the Hero Guild. His sister gushes that they're the #1 guild for players her age, even rivaling the top-tier Mile Sale in raw popularity. That makes zero sense to him considering the guild doesn't even crack the top 10 on the actual competitive leaderboards. The 10 out of 10 guildmaster suddenly flashes onto the screen. She enlightens him that the Hero Guild's fame has nothing to do with skill. The members are just insanely hot. She drools over Guildmaster Verza, calling it the dream guild for every girl. Do-hyun squints at the screen. Aside from the guy's basic K-pop e-boy aesthetic, he doesn't see the appeal despite his sister's insistence that he's the peak of cool. 2 words that no self-respecting girl will ever utter to her own brother. Irritated, Do-hyun thinks that's bold talk coming from a solid 6 whose only talent is occupying the couch all evening. She adds that their YouTube channel is exploding purely because of Verza's aura, leaving Do-hyun completely bewildered. She explains that every major guild streams on YouTube for engagement. The big players pull in millions of views, which completely blows his mind, because that translates to a staggering amount of cold hard cash. She casually confirms Verza probably clears $1 billion a month just from ad revenue. Do-hyun's brain goes numb as he calculates exactly how many KFC buckets he could buy with that kind of astronomical fortune. Feeling thoroughly defeated by the power of a pretty boy aesthetic, he slumps back to his room and logs back into the game to escape the harshness of reality. This time, he decides to record his sessions, hoping to capture some banger clips of his own. Jahad wakes up too, cheerfully chirping good morning to his master until Do-hyun's icy glare reminds the little goblin of the intensive education he received and the proper honorifics required when addressing a god. Jahad starts sweating bullets, but Do-hyun decides to cut the pathetic shaman some slack for once. He tosses the shaman's robe over, giving him something to hide his shame, since he can't exactly equip the gear himself at the moment anyway. Instead of showing any gratitude, the little rascal's loyalty drops as he plots a way to shank his master for freedom. However, one tiny reminder of yesterday's pain quickly corrects his behavior, and Jahad suddenly overflows with gratitude for his master's overwhelming kindness. He then submissively asks what the grand plan for the day is. He tells the gremlin they have a mountain of objectives to clear, and together they move deeper into the unexplored regions of the lair, where he brutally massacres every goblin in sight, leaving Jahad feeling a twinge of pity for his own kind. After the bloody cleanup, he commands the shaman to demonstrate a new utility. He orders the gremlin to drop his current loot and attempt to reanimate the goblins he just slaughtered. The shaman casts aside his gear and begins chanting an incantation that carries a gravity far too intense for his comical little face, and surprisingly, the dark magic takes hold, forcing a red goblin to claw its way back from the dead. Jahad repeats the ritual twice more, confirming his current command limit is a trio of thralls. The prospect of a pocket undead army piques Kaiser's interest, making the shaman far more viable than he first assumed. Without waiting for a formal green light, the shaman begins barking orders at his new subjects, completely snubbing his master. When Kaiser demands to know what he's up to, Jahad smugly clarifies that he has no intention of hauling heavy loot himself. The little brat's immediate pivot to slave labor, the second he gains subordinates, proves he's a natural-born menace. Kaiser informs Jahad of his plan to farm elite mobs once he hits the next milestone, but Jahad blindsides him, casually revealing that he already knows the exact coordinates where the elites congregate. Apparently, they're so slothful that they effectively camp the same coordinates around the clock. Hearing this, our boy's grin widens as a truly diabolical strategy begins to take shape. Realizing the elite mobs are dim-witted enough to cluster together, Kaiser hatches a plan with Jahad's intel. He navigates the treacherous woods and pinpoints the ultimate hunting ground. They stumble upon an encampment of humanoid monstrosities, and Jahad confirms with a nod to his master that they've found their mark. A deranged predatory smile spreads across Kaiser's face as he surveys the unsuspecting camp. Infiltrating the perimeter triggers a sudden quest, the Trial of Warriors. Clearing this objective promises 100 gold skill proficiency and a coveted intermediate skill draw ticket. If there are gacha tickets on the line, you can bet this man will move heaven and earth to claim them. Without wasting a second of his 48-hour window, he storms the camp, broadcasting his presence. There's no room for stealth. He's going full throttle balls to the wall. To the elite mob's credit, they don't flinch, instantly readying their steel, but he sidesteps the initial lunge with frame-perfect timing. Harnessing his angular momentum, Kaiser strikes from above while his greatsword is still sheathed. He drives his knee forward, delivering a bone-shattering blow straight into the monster's hideous face, vaporizing several teeth in the process, and leaving the poor mob's nose a mangled mess of pixels. Without a backward glance, Kaiser shifts his lethal focus to the rest of the pack. This time, he fluidly draws his looted dagger in a blur of motion, activating Vital Thrust. He shreds the vitals of 3 monsters in a frantic heartbeat. Those lucky enough to survive the initial burst are left with a devastating bleeding debuff that drains their life by the second. Within moments, the once fearsome elite camp is reduced to a single, desperate survivor, testing. His raw stacked strength against the beast's blade skill, Kaiser parries with a mere dagger. The monster is stunned, finding its full force swing neutralized by such a diminutive weapon, leaving its guard wide open. He delivers a punishing kick to the gut, knocking the very breath out of the creature's lungs. To put a definitive period on his sudden ambush, he reaches for his primary engine of destruction, brandishing the crimson greatsword with max intensity, forcing the beast to let out one final agonized war cry. Kaiser cleaves the son of a gun in two without meeting a shred of resistance. From the opening charge to the final execution, it took mere seconds to saturate the camp in gore and finalize the slaughter. Jihad watched from a safe distance as his unhinged master systematically erased an elite troop without even breaking a sweat. He finally understands how terrifying this man truly is. In this dark forest, he isn't just a player. It's more fitting to call him a demon, the devil incarnate. Kaiser plants his blade in the earth and expands his senses. Now that the warriors are dead, the real game begins. The next threat is primed to spawn any second, and right on cue, the hidden field boss emerges. The goblin great warrior, Karuk, thunders into the clearing. His sudden appearance triggers an automatic quest chain, escalating the mission into a high-stakes trial, the challenge of the great warrior. Karuk is a named elite, a hidden field boss equipped with lethal body fortification and berserker passives. Any ordinary player would have reached for an escape scroll, trembling in the face of such power, but to Kaiser, this monster was nothing more than a walking jackpot. He unsheathed his greatsword and ignited his momentum to intercept the hidden field boss head-on. In the heat of the charge, Jihad desperately screamed a warning, insisting that soloing a field boss of this magnitude was suicide, but his master completely tuned him out. Karuk's frostbite war axe was pulsing with a ruthless strike buff. One direct clash, and Kaiser's blade would shatter into pixels. Processing that intel in a heartbeat, Kaiser pivoted to avoid a head-to-head collision. With a breathtaking display of finesse, he danced around the swing, leaving Karuk dazed and swinging at shadows. The beast was visibly rattled, having failed to end the confrontation in a single crushing blow. Even Jihad was left speechless. A split second before the axe could pulverize his steel, Kaiser manipulated his blade's angle to deflect the force without sacrificing his gear. He raised his chin and shot the hulking goblin a mocking smirk that acted as a taunt. Enraged Karuk hoisted his axe high, ready to turn the second round into a brutal close-quarters bloodbath. The man himself, Kaiser, expertly parried the momentum of the frozen weapon, and the two began a savage, rhythmic exchange of steel. Ignoring fancy footwork or complex kiting, they stood their ground and traded earth-shaking blows. Jihad had never witnessed a duel this intense in his entire century-long existence. Kaiser wasn't being shredded or overwhelmed. Thanks to his flawless parry timing, he was neutralizing every lethal strike, dissolving the boss's offense with nothing but raw god-tier skill, as any veteran knows. Parrying is a high-risk, high-reward gamble. A single millisecond off and your defense collapses entirely. It is one of the few elite defensive arts available to a swordsman. While most use it for predictable fodder, a true master can use a simple parry to negate even legendary tier skills, though its complexity makes it a rarity. Almost no frontline fighter dares to use it in a real life or death brawl, but Kaiser had luckily pulled this high-tier, high-reward technique from a low-level gacha draw. The moment the cooldown for a ruthless strike reset, Karuk unleashed another world-ending swing. This time, Kaiser let the axe bury itself in the dirt while he instantaneously flickered behind the clumsy brute. By the time Karuk sensed the threat at his flank, Kaiser was already wearing a smug, shit-eating grin. Jihad watched in awe as his master effortlessly dismantled a boss that usually required a full raid team to down. With a singular, devastating crescent arc, Kaiser beheaded the mountain of muscle, the hidden field boss. The great warrior Karuk had been officially purged. Kaiser cleared the great warrior's trial, and the achievement was etched into his adventure log along with 200 gold. A massive infusion of EXP and 2 coveted intermediate skill draw tickets. Kaiser didn't give a damn about the gold or the level up. His eyes locked onto the gacha tickets as he began celebrating like a primal caveman who had just discovered fire for the first time. Every time he witnessed this gacha dance, Jihad couldn't help but feel a wave of secondhand embarrassment. In the heat of battle, this man is a cold-blooded demon, a butcher who leaves nothing but silence in his wake. But the moment a loot box appears, he transforms into the world's most pathetic gambling addict. Such is the duality of a pro gamer. He instantly summoned the tickets and smashed the use button. A rush of pure dopamine flooded his brain. As a kaleidoscope of potential abilities flashed before his eyes, the first card revealed a rare martial arts technique, Ascending Dragon Kick, while the second pull snagged a rare support skill called Striking. This was a monumental pull, as striking is the holy grail for buffer classes. With a 40-second duration and an equal cooldown, it grants 100% uptime on a plus 40 physical attack buff, essentially turning a standard blade into a heavy-hitting greatsword with 0 mobility penalties. He had truly hit the jackpot. The skill synergy was so perfect, it nearly brought a tear to his eye. A DPS carry who can self-buff is the ultimate solo play wet dream. The Ascending Dragon Kick was the cherry on top, a skill he wanted purely for the fact that it looked cool as hell to execute. To top it off, the boss dropped Karuk's crimson leather set, both top and bottom pieces in heroic grade. He even secured the rare plus red-blue pauldrons and Karuk's essence ring. At long last, Kaiser could graduate from his raggedy goblin rags. For a massive power spike, he assembles the full Karuk set. The red and blue Great Warrior armor, the set bonuses alone, provide a 10% boost to slam AoE, a 6.5% melee damage multiplier, and a +4 bump to every core stat. Draped in the dual-tone plate, his aesthetic finally matches his lethality. Even Jihad offers a rare compliment, admitting Kaiser is truly terrifying. When he wants to be, he takes his servant's fear as the ultimate praise. Sometimes he even surprises himself with how cracked his build has become. Seeing Kaiser bask in his own ego, Jihad immediately abandons any hope of having a sane conversation with the man. However, the gloating is cut short by a system alert. The little goblin's loyalty just dropped by a point, proving the brat was talking trash in his head. Subconsciously, Kaiser rests his hand on his bastard sword, eyeing the little fella, and reminds Jihad that staying in line is a prerequisite for staying alive. Fortunately, for a gremlin like Jihad, pure terror is the most effective loyalty booster. With his objectives met, there's nothing left for him in this gloom-ridden forest. It's time to move out though, even after slaying a hidden field boss. The undisputed rank 1 was still hungry for more loot. He had already found his rhythm, so he might as well keep the massacre going. But to unlock the next region, Kaiser must first conquer the Continental Trial, which predictably involves a high-tier boss hunt. He needs to slay Spider Queen Eliza and reach level 24. The queen is known to haunt the deepest thickets of the Western Forest. Like any major boss site, her lair's entrance is swarming with players praying for a lucky drop. Currently, a massive crowd has gathered, waiting for the next spawn in 10 minutes. The rumors are flying. Some say she last appeared at the Eastern Web and might repeat the cycle, but it's a total gamble. She could emerge from the north or west without a moment's notice. Just as the countdown nears 0, Kaiser arrives at the silk-choked lair and asks his bald-headed lackey if he has the inside scoop on the exact spawn coordinates. Jihad calls her a new generation monster, admitting he's not familiar with her patterns. Kaiser is visibly annoyed. He expected the little guy to know every secret of the woods, but instead he's stuck in the same guessing game as the rest of the players. However, wherever she crawls out, he can always use backstab to steal the initiation. Luckily, his Slayer trait suddenly procs, granting him an unfair god tier advantage over the entire server. The trait pulses, revealing Eliza's exact spawn location directly in his mind. A welcome if confusing surprise. He doesn't remember earning a Spider Slayer title. Could it be that the trait applies to all bosses he hasn't even encountered yet? If this works on every boss monster, the skill is absolutely broken. He'll definitely need to run more tests on this hidden mechanic later. Right now, the only priority is the queen he's about to butcher. His current loadout is tailor-made to monopolize every boss in the zone. The second the timer hits 0, Kaiser vanishes, leaving the rest of the players eating his dust as he teleports. Directly behind the hairy, 8-legged tank that is Spider Queen Eliza, with no one else in this dark, subterranean cavern, he has all the room he needs to go wild. The Slayer backstab combo is just too efficient, and Jihad is dragged along for the ride. The little gremlin continues to be floored by his master's endless bag of tricks, standing before the queen, who just realized she has company. Kaiser is momentarily stunned by her gargantuan size. The massive arachnid screeches her name like a feral Pokemon as she lunges at the solitary intruder. Feeling out her speed, Kaiser executes a clean backdash, narrowly avoiding her fangs. Once he creates the perfect gap, he triggers backstab and melts into the shadows. The Spider Queen is far too sluggish to react to the sudden disappearance, and Kaiser realizes he's found the perfect punching bag for his new ascending dragon kick. The impact is amplified by his armor's 6% damage buff, but more importantly, he was right. The move looks absolutely legendary in motion. He delivers a sickening amount of force, making every one of Eliza's eyes well up with tears. Just give the man a blindfold and call him Lee Sin. That single strike packed the raw power of an ultimate tier skill. The impact sent the Spider Queen careening through the cavern, eating dirt as Kaiser refused to grant her a moment of respite. Kaiser unsheathed his bastard sword and lunged forward like a bolt of lightning. Eliza had sustained catastrophic damage and struggled to find her footing. Paralyzed by her injuries, she could only watch as Kaiser began butchering her like a slab of prime meat. Yet noticing the lack of a kill notification, he refused to relent, shifting his speed into overdrive and activating striking to surge his attack power to a truly terrifying threshold. The sudden spike in raw strength was suffocating. His aura grew heavy, predatory, and absolute. Every ounce of the Spider Queen's former malice dissolved into pure terror as Kaiser channeled a familiar surging energy. He summoned a gargantuan spectral dragon construct. With a roar, he unleashed the ascending dragon kick directly into her cranium, aiming to liquefy the giant monster's brain in a single brutal strike. Eliza convulsed, spraying foul bile as her final glimmer of hope evaporated into the dark. The sheer tectonic force of his heel shattered the ground and vibrated through the entire cave system. Jihad dove behind a boulder, Feeling a wave of genuine pity for any monster unfortunate enough to cross his master's path today, battered and broken, the Spider Queen looked up at Kaiser with eyes full of pathetic pleading sorrow. Kaiser growled in annoyance, tired of the spider's broken record screeching of the name Eliza, now that the hunt was effectively over. Letting his sadistic side take the wheel, he sheathed his steel to finish her with his bare knuckles. She couldn't understand human speech. But the queen knew instinctively she was about to endure a world of pain. Jihad winced at the rhythmic thud of flesh on flesh as his master pulverized the monster's hide. The display of raw cruelty triggered a bout of PTSD in the little goblin. As he was no stranger to the weight of those very same hands, Kaiser's fist became a blur, raining down a dozen haymakers per second to whittle away her remaining HP. But hearing her wail the name Eliza, something clicked in Jihad's ancient memory. He realized he had encountered that specific name in a lifetime long forgotten. Stricken by the revelation, he sprinted onto the battlefield, desperately begging his master to cease the assault and risking Kaiser's wrath. He threw himself between them, imploring the man to halt the execution. Kaiser wasn't a completely heartless machine. He heeded his servant's frantic cry and stepped back from the brink. Jihad scrambled toward Eliza with tears streaming down his face, pleading for her to keep her eyes open. With her life force fading, the Spider Queen struggled to recognize the tiny figure through the haze of agony. He yanked back his hood, revealing his bald, familiar head to jog her memory. The moment she realized who stood before her, floodgates of relief opened within the giant arachnid. These two bosses shared a bond forged over 150 years ago, back when she was nothing more than a fragile tiny spiderling. In those days, she had a peculiar habit of chirping her own name, Liza. Jihad had never encountered a species quite like her in all his travels. On a whim, he invited the little creature to join his odyssey, and she had readily accepted his hand. Liza had been his sole companion through the endless nights of arcane research. Finding the name Liza a bit too simple, Jihad added an E to the start. Eliza had been overjoyed to receive a formal moniker from her goblin friend, even if she struggled to pronounce it at first. But Jihad insisted on Eliza from then on. One day, he was forced to depart for a realm far too perilous for a small spider. He promised a swift return, and Eliza waited patiently in the spot where he left her. She stood vigil for an eternity as the sun and moon traded places 1,000 times over. A year bled into a decade, and a decade into a century. A full 100 years passed, and still she waited for a reunion that felt like a fading dream, clinging to a promise that remained unkept. The small cabin they once shared eventually succumbed to the rot of time and collapsed into ruin. Orphaned by time, the growing Eliza was forced to seek refuge within the depths of the western forest. After a century of stagnant waiting, she steeled her heart and returned to the exact spot they first met, chanting the name Jihad gave her so she'd never lose her way. 150 years later, Jihad and little Eliza are finally reunited. Their sizes have inverted, but their ancient bond remains unbroken. After listening to the tragic backstory, Kaiser's only takeaway was that Jihad was a massive prick for abandoning her. The bald gnome lowered his head in shame, catching his master's judgmental gaze for a brief second, before returning to his tearful mourning for his lost friend. However, the reunion left one burning question. Jihad wasn't gone for a week. He had vanished for a century and a half, while Jihad's expression darkened as he claimed the reason was a mystery. Locked behind a seal he currently lacked the power to break, Kaiser scowled at the cryptic, vague explanation. Still, all the little goblin could do was offer his deepest apologies for the secrets he was forbidden to share. Seeing his genuine remorse, the master decided not to press the issue any further. Tainted by the depressing weight of the Spider Queen's history, Kaiser was at a loss. His mandatory quest required her death to progress. Luckily, it seemed Eliza had a solution of her own. She began frantically chattering her plan to a stunned Jihad. In her ancient, guttural monster tongue, as soon as the plan was laid out, Jihad vehemently refused to even consider such a dark proposition. Kaiser demanded an immediate translation of their exchange, and a hesitant Jihad finally complied. In short, the Spider Queen told Jihad that the human should simply deliver the killing blow,